And that's Vito. You'll likely hear him snorting all the time. But that's okay, that's how he communicates with me, through snorts and grunts. Today, we're back with another installment of r/nosleep. We have a post here from Equivalent Might 655. I am afraid of my room. Simple title. Doesn't really hook you in much. Everybody was afraid of their room at some point. I'm intrigued. Let's jump right in. When I was a kid, young, probably around 4 or 6, I would always have trouble getting to bed. I would toss and turn, uncomfortable. I couldn't explain to my mother why I had always felt like something was wrong whenever I lay down onto my bed, looking at the ceiling in my own cold sweat. Eventually, I would always end up going to Mom and Dad's room. My brother would always tease me for saying that I am too old to be sleeping with your parents. And when I had pissed in their bed one time, as a toddler. However, that night, I decided to man up and grow a pair. I was tired of the endless teasing from my brother, and I wanted to prove to him that I just wasn't some crybaby who needs their parents to help them sleep. Stop, bro! I'm right here, you don't have to honk at me. Stop. To be honest, looking back on it now, I should have just ignored my brother entirely and followed my initial instinct of leaving the room out of fear. Honey, are you sure you want to sleep in there? Your mom and dad are always okay to let you sleep with us if you feel sad without us, Mom said. Mommy, I don't want to sleep in my own bed, I replied, like a little shit if I'm going to be honest. Well, okay, if you want to come to Mommy and Daddy's room, just knock on the door and we'll let you come sleep with us, she said back to me. I closed the door, with more conviction than a toddler should have. Then I laid in my bed. I stared at the ceiling and closed my eyes. My brother wouldn't make fun of me tomorrow. I was sure of it. Later that night, I woke in a cold sweat, one where my whole body was covered in it. It wasn't like it was hot in my room. In fact, it was during the winter, and my mom always kept my window open since the air conditioning hardly reached my room, so it was fairly cold. Okay, that's a confusing line because he's saying that it wasn't hot in the room, and it was during winter, but his mom kept the window open since the air conditioning hardly reached the room, so it was fairly cold. It was cold, but they're running the air conditioner. I tried to ignore the feeling, I really did. I tossed and I turned. I closed my eyes and counted sheep, turtles, T-Rex, all the animals my toddler brain knew at the time. I eventually had begun to drift to sleep. My eyelids grew heavy once again, and I knew it was time. Slowly, my body relaxed, and I was nearly asleep when shriek, something scraped loudly, something sharp, sounded metallic in a way, nearly like a knife. It happened again. By now, I was already alert. It sounded as if it came from the attic entrance above me. You see, in this house, all the bedrooms reside on the second floor, with the kitchen and living room downstairs. In 2 of the bedrooms, my brother's and mine, were the attic entrances. One more scrape. At a time, I thought I had connected the dots to something more obvious. My brother must be playing a prank on me. It wouldn't have been a new development. He's done a few pranks before, and I'd been humiliated more than enough times to be scared of him. Liam, if you're playing another prank on me, I know it, I said to the attic entrance above, trying to keep my voice down not to wake my parents. No response. It's not funny, Liam. I'm trying to sleep. No response. But now, I was furious as a toddler could get. First, my brother Liam bullies me for not being able to sleep without my mom and dad. But now, he's trying to scare me into going to the room so he can make more fun of me. Okay, Liam, I'm gonna go up there and beat your butt, I shouted. No response. I groaned, then hopped off my bed. Spent a little bit of time dragging my bed over under the attic entrance, then stood atop my bed, jumped as high as I could, and grabbed the latch to open the attic. The stairs slid down loudly. I could only hope my mom and dad didn't wake, but if they did, I would have been in big trouble. I took one peek out of my bedroom door and no one seemed to be stirring, so I closed it quietly and hopped up onto the unfurled attic stairway. In the attic, it was dark, really dark, so dark I couldn't see my hand in front of me or anything around me. I have no clue how Liam could have got through here and found my room's attic entrance to play a prank in this darkness. I could hear the crickets outside, chirping loudly as usual. The wind blowing against the shingles of the roof. The jingle of our wind chime by the front door. Our attic wasn't very soundproof. Now that I'd taken in all of the scenery, and lack thereof, all my previous confidence had gone. I was just a toddler after all, afraid of the dark. I had made my mind up to go back down and try to figure out how to close the attic door when... the scraping noise. Except now it sounded like it had a bit more of a squelch to it. It sounded more clear now. It was nearby. The thin attic walls weren't soundproof, but they hid the nature of the scraping well. My toddler mind couldn't comprehend what it could have been, but I know now that it was most likely flesh. Liam, I said, my voice shaky, tears started to well up in my eyes. The moment I spoke, the atmosphere changed. The wind was gone. The crickets stopped abruptly. The soothing chimes in the distance had begun to die out in sound. I stood on the stairs, frozen in complete fear. I couldn't move at all. This type of fear was too much for a toddler, leaving me only just able to sit there. There was no flight or flight, just freezing. My mind at that moment was probably racing as fast as my heart was. I could only come to the conclusion that was not Liam. That was not my brother. I couldn't see anything in the pitch black darkness. I think maybe it was for the best. My body, which was lagging behind my racing mind, finally caught up. It went backwards down the stairs as fast as possible, falling down on my side in the process, then quickly getting up and running to my mom and dad's room. I turned the knob. It was locked. "Mom! Mom!" I shouted in distress, pounding on the door. 10 seconds of screaming and slamming on the door later, my mom opens the door. I just ran out of the room crying my eyes out. I explained everything that happened, and they probably thought I was just raving about something childish and didn't believe me. "You have to believe me. Check the attic. There it is. I heard it," I exclaimed to my dad. He got up with a sigh and said, "Fine. I'll go check the attic if it'll make you feel better. It's gonna be nothing though, so don't get your hopes up," he said, exasperated. At the time, I thought my dad was indestructible, more powerful than Superman, more smart than Batman, and more agile than Spider-Man. So I followed him into my room and up the attic. He turned his phone flashlight on and scanned it around the attic floor. I was sitting on my bed below him, watching him nervously. "I see nothing." He stopped mid-sentence. I could see his obvious immediate disturbance. "Son, you know how to call the police, right? Mommy taught you. Call 911 right now on the home line in the kitchen and wake your brother up," he said. This was the most nervous I had ever seen my dad. "But, Dad," I said, getting cut off. "Now! Go now!" he demanded. I ran out of my room and bursted into my brother's room. "Liam, wake up! We need to call 911!" I shouted, jumping onto him, which startled him enough to wake him up immediately. What? What do you mean 911? Like cops?" Liam said. "I don't know. Daddy just told me. He seemed really mad," I said, running downstairs to the kitchen. Turning on the kitchen light, I dialed 911 on his house phone. I told them about how my dad told me to call them and how he seemed really panicked. Due to me being a toddler, I couldn't really convey everything perfectly, but I managed to get the point across well enough that the police were on their way to our address. My dad, Liam, and me waited in the kitchen, but he wouldn't let us go upstairs. I was really curious at that time what he had seen in the attic, and I hadn't. But my fear of my dad getting angry at me outweighed the want to see whatever was up there. At the time, I didn't find out what was up there. Shortly, we had moved out of the area. I joined a new school along with my brother, and that was that. But now, decades later, I had come across an old article. It was small, short, concise, and only really published in the local area. "Man behind the killings of 40 finally caught and sentenced," was the headline. I figured it'd be interesting until I clicked on the article and was met with a picture of my house. It was said in the article, for years, the killer had used the house to dismember and consume his victims. His MO usually went like this. He would find the victim, drug them, climbed up the large tree that leaned on the attic window, and throw himself along with the victim inside the attic. That would be a feat. He would then start, for lack of better words, dismantling them. His victims were alive when he did it. He usually drugged them up with something that prevented muscular movement. The sound that I heard that night was a scraping of the flesh off the bone, someone dying. I suppose one reason I wasn't killed might have been because they got some kind of kick out of someone being nearby when they someone. The more I thought about it, the more I realized what my father saw that night. I could imagine him turning the light on his phone, waving it around and seeing a glimpse of a shiny, growing pool of blood. Shining the flashlight up, he would have seen someone, partly bone, partly muscle, partly skin. The killer was never found by the police. Some private detective did it. They killed him though, probably for the best. Nobody knows what they look like. My dad, who was one of the only people to catch a glimpse of them, just said he could tell they had an average build, average height. To this day, my father doesn't speak anymore on the topics of this. I can understand why. If it wasn't for the darkness at night, I would have had to pay a lot in therapy to this day. Just know, if you hear anything lurking, scraping, scratching in the dark, it could be a prank, it could be mice, but you never know. It might be something far worse than you could ever imagine. All right, they redeem themselves a little bit. There's a little bit of grammar going on in here, but the concept of the story is good. It's weird that it's coming from a toddler's perspective. Either way, the author seems kind of young. Keep doing it. Don't be discouraged. Keep reinventing yourself. Just don't stop trying, and you'll get better and better at this. I guarantee it. There's a lot of potential here. That being said, please like and subscribe. I am the Mid-Grid Masochist. Farewell.